Good afternoon. Welcome to the FTD University webinar titled Results-Driven Visual Social Media Marketing. Today, you will learn why visuals are so important and how you can quickly and easily create images and videos as a part of your social media strategy. Krista, Neher, CEO of Bootcamp Digital, will be leading this informative webinar. She is an international speaker and the author of several books, including the best-selling Social Media Field Guide, Visual Social Media Marketing, the textbook Social Media Marketing: A Strategic Approach, and her brand new book, Visual Social Marketing for Dummies. Krista has graciously offered to give away a free copy of her new book to one lucky winner who will be selected from all attendees who listen to this entire live presentation. Krista is passionate about social media and created one of the first accredited social media certification programs in the world. She has trained thousands of businesses and hundreds of thousands of individuals in social media marketing. Once Krista is finished with her presentation, we will open the webinar up for questions. If you have a question, simply type it in the question box on the upper right side of your screen. We will take the questions in the order they are received. Please feel free to submit your questions during the presentation, and we will hold them until the Q&A portion of the webinar. So without further ado, I would like to turn the call over to Krista to begin the webinar. Krista?
Excellent. Hello, and thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited that you all made the choice to join us for this webinar because I'm going to share with you some of the leading ways that visuals can really improve and enhance your online presence. So this isn't even just about social media. It's actually really bigger than that, and you'll start to see how a strong visual presence can actually impact the overall effectiveness of pretty much everything you're doing online today. I'm really excited about this topic specifically to be doing it as a part of the FTD group because I think especially for florists, this is something that you can really easily take advantage of and start getting results from. A lot of the businesses that I work with aren't very visual. I work with, accountants and insurance agents. But for all of you on this call, this is something that you should be able to actually take advantage of and implement and start getting results from relatively quickly. So with that, just to share my quick background with you, I worked at Procter & Gamble for about 6 years, and since about 2007, I've been working in social media marketing. And it's been interesting because I've been able to see it grow, evolve, and change, really, over the last few years. And I would say where we are now is that we're starting to see more and more businesses are using social media, which is great, but at the same time, that's making it more and more difficult for businesses to stand out. And so that's where visual social media marketing really comes in, is that what you'll discover today is that some of the visual tools that you can start taking advantage of aren't as cluttered or difficult to use as social networks like Facebook. And so what you'll find is you can get results much more quickly from some of these sites. So let's dive in and get started. So as we think about visuals and images and why they're so important, you've heard the expression, I'm sure, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, apparently a picture is actually worth much more than that. Your brain actually processes images 60,000 times faster than text, 60,000 times faster. So the reason visuals are so important is because we can actually communicate more information more quickly by using images than we can do from text. So if you sit down and think about what is it that you want your customers or potential customers to believe about you, right? You probably want them to believe that you have creativity maybe, or that you're reliable, or that you have certain quality standards. Whatever those things are that you want them to believe, you can put those words on your website, or you can show it visually to them through the images that you use, which brings your message to life in a much more clear way. If you just look at some of these images, for example, instantly, as soon as you see them, they elicit a reaction, right? You can process them quickly. So even if I had only left this slide up for about a second, you would have been able to take in these pictures because that's how quickly our brains can actually understand images. Whereas if I had used text, you would need a lot more time to read. So images are powerful for two reasons. One, they can communicate information more quickly, but two, they can be much more powerful because you're showing people what their actual experience would be like. And we'll talk a little bit about this trend more throughout the call today, but really a big part of the value in using images is that you give people an idea of what they can actually expect from interacting with you. So good visual social marketing actually doesn't start with social media or Pinterest or Instagram or anything else. It starts with your website. The key to strong visual social marketing is to have a website that is visually shareable across the internet. So let me step back and show you a little bit about what I mean by this with an example. So this is Starbucks.com. I personally drink a lot of coffee, and so Starbucks is an example that I wanted to use because coffee keeps me going in life. But Starbucks does a great job with visual social marketing in terms of their website, and here's why. So first, you can see here, this is their homepage. But here's where Starbucks does a really good job, is that every individual product on Starbucks has its own page. So this is the salted caramel cake pop. So literally every single product and sub-product has its own page. Why is that important? Well, if you think about how people share information and content online, they like to share specific things, right? So I probably don't just want to say, wow, I love Starbucks new cake pops. I probably want to say the salted caramel cake pop is delicious. And if they don't have a page on their website that I can link back to when I'm talking about that specific product, then they would be missing out on the opportunity for me to really talk about it in a meaningful way. Let me kind of explain this a little differently for those of you who are maybe still trying to understand what I mean by this. Let's say you're a florist and you put together a really cool St. Patrick's Day arrangement. If I wanted to share that with my friends and say, wow, check out this neat St. Patrick's Day arrangement, if you don't have that image on a page on your website, it's really difficult for me to take that picture and then maybe share it on Facebook or pin it on Pinterest or talk about it on Twitter. So the first thing that you want to think about is auditing your website and looking at, do you have images on your website so that when people talk about your product or your business, they're including relevant pictures with those discussions. So here's an example. I just randomly picked 3 florists in Cincinnati to use as an example. This is a Facebook status update. So if you're active on Facebook, this little screenshot will look familiar to you. So let's say I just got an amazing arrangement from robinwoodflowers.com. You can see here that when I share the link for this website, what Facebook does, and you've all seen this in Facebook posts, is Facebook will automatically pull in the title of the website, the URL, the description text, and an image. And the image is really the focus point. If you're on Facebook, just stop and scan through your newsfeed. And what you'll find is images are mostly what catches your eye. Now, if your website doesn't have great pictures on it, or those pictures can't be understood by Facebook, you're missing out on the opportunity. And in this case, while this picture is presumably of their logo, it's really not doing a great job of building their brand. It's not interesting. It wouldn't make me want to click on it. Let's look at a couple of other examples. So this is what happened when I went to share Jones the Florist on Facebook. Facebook actually couldn't find any images from the website. So if I wanted to share with my friends that I just got pictures from Jones the Florist, you can see here it's maybe not very impactful because there's no pictures coming along with the post. Now, here's an example that's actually a website that's optimized well for images. So when I go to share Glendale Florist, you can see it's sharing a beautiful picture of actual flowers. And in the bottom here, you can see 3 of 8, and it says choose a thumbnail. There were actually 8 different pictures I could choose from on their homepage to accompany my post on Facebook. So the point is that visual social marketing starts with your website. And what you want to do first is look at whether or not when people are talking about your products on Facebook, Can they find relevant images? Because that maximizes the post and it maximizes the probability that someone will click on it. The thing is, if I posted all 3 of these posts on Facebook, the one that would generate the most clicks is the one with the best image, based on what we know about Facebook. And this is also true on Pinterest, LinkedIn, although I'm not sure people are necessarily sharing pictures of photos on LinkedIn. But this is true on Facebook, Twitter, as well as Pinterest. So when you look at making your website shareable, the first thing that you really want to step back and look at is, do you have good images on your site? And much like Starbucks, if you have specific products that people might want to talk about, you want to make sure that those products have standalone pages with images, because it actually makes it much easier for someone to share them, just like this. Another example I'll share just to drive home this point, I mentioned I drink a lot of coffee. My local favorite coffee shop is called Coffee Emporium. Coffee Emporium has come out with these iced coffee growlers. So it's like a refillable jug of iced coffee that you can buy. So for coffee addicts like me, this thing is amazing. Anyways, if they don't actually, Coffee Emporium has a great website. They have some pictures on their homepage, but they actually don't list their products anywhere. And specifically, they don't have even a blog post about their iced coffee growlers. So if I wanted to tell my friends, hey, did you know Coffee Emporium has these awesome iced coffee growlers, all I could do is link to, in the case of Coffee Emporium, all I would be doing is linking to their homepage. There's no picture of the iced coffee growler. People can't find out more information about them. If I wanted to do the same thing with Starbucks, because they have individual product pages for everything, I can really easily talk about all of their products, which means more links back to their site and more people clicking on those links and more people talking about them. And all of this helps not only with social media, but also with search engine optimization. And search engine optimization is about getting to the top of Google when people search for things like Cincinnati florist. So encouraging people to talk about your business and making it easy for them to share great content with images is something that's becoming more and more important. So step 1 in our visual social marketing checklist is to take a look at your website and really make sure that your website is optimized for visuals. The next big trend that we're seeing as it comes to visuals is not just having what I would consider professional photos. Like if we look at this, this is like a professional photo, right? But also including images of real photos. So if you've ever seen an ad for a Big Mac, this is what most ads for Big Macs look like. I haven't had one in a long time, but according to the internet, when you get a Big Mac, this is a more accurate representation of what a Big Mac actually looks like. So what does that mean? Why am I showing you gross Big Macs? I know none of you are in the business of selling hamburgers. The point is that people are skeptical of ads. And, you know, even when I look at this picture here from Glendale Florist, it's a beautiful picture, but I can tell that this is their flowers at their absolute best. What I want to understand as a consumer is, what are the flowers going to look like when they get delivered to my house, or if I go into the store to pick them out? And so one of the other big trends that we're seeing in visual marketing is what I call the 3 R's of visual marketing: real pictures of real things taken by real people. And I'm going to talk to you about Instagram in a little bit. Instagram is one of the best opportunities for this. But what you want to start thinking about is, in addition, you know, you may not have a huge photography budget. Maybe if you just put together a St. Patrick's Day arrangement on the fly, you don't have the opportunity to get a professional photographer out there and take this kind of a picture. That's okay. Pictures that are taken quickly from your phone can actually serve a helpful purpose in your marketing, because we know that a lot of professional photographs aren't necessarily the best representation, and people also want to see real photos taken by real people. So something else to consider is asking your customers to share their photos. This is an example of Lululemon. Lululemon sells very expensive yoga clothes. They did a test on their website where they started asking women to use hashtag #TheSweatLife when they shared, when they were wearing Lululemon clothes to work out. And so people started taking pictures, you can see these in the bottom, using hashtags the sweat life. What they found was that by including user-generated photos on their website, they saw 5 to 7% increase in conversion rates. Conversion rates are basically the number of people who bought from them. So a 5 to 7% increase in the number of people buying from them just by adding user-generated photos. They also found that after interacting with a real person's photo, there was a 2 to 3 times higher conversion rate. So if someone actually clicked on the photos, they were much more likely to buy. So one of the other things to keep in mind as a website strategy is also looking for opportunities not just to have professional, perfect photos, but to have either pictures from your customers or pictures that you're taking on the fly as you're putting things together as a way to give people a more realistic view of what they can expect. And this is a trend that we're starting to see across social media. If we look at what's trending in terms of images on Facebook, Twitter, as well as the newer social networks like Instagram and Pinterest, we're seeing that people have more an appetite for real photos of real things taken by real people. So it's something that you want to consider. One of the things that I would encourage you to do is, hopefully you already have a smartphone. If not, get one. Get a phone that can take pictures. And just start getting in the habit of taking pictures. Not necessarily selfies, but getting the habit of taking pictures as a way to start building an image inventory and to start building a library of realistic-looking pictures. Because we know that that's more effective in ultimately closing sales with people. So I'm not saying you don't need those, perfect, beautiful stock photos that you're probably using. What I am saying is that in addition, you also want to try and generate user-generated photos. The reality is that all kinds of decisions we make online are the same. If you've ever bought something on Amazon or watched a movie on Netflix, the star rating is one of the top things that drives sales. On Yelp, which is a local business review site, they say that for restaurants, the difference between just 1 star can be over $1 million of business for restaurants. So what that means is that if you look at why Yelp is so popular and that 1 star difference is that it's real experiences of real people. And so you want to start building habits visually of showing people what their real experiences would be like by getting in the habit of taking pictures and by starting to ask your customers to take pictures. And by asking them to share their experiences with you, and you can do this simply with a hashtag, for example, you can actually grow your overall online presence and then avert people talking about you. So this is an example of a Facebook page. Now, if you look at, this is Jones the Florist, if you look at the images shared on Facebook, some of these look a little more professional, right? Some of them look like they were maybe done with a professional photographer, but others look like pictures that were taken, a little more quickly and on the go. And as we look at the content people like, even on Facebook, we're seeing this kind of user-generated content is really popular. Many of the photos that brands like Starbucks and Pampers even are using on Facebook are user-generated photos or pictures taken from Instagram. So even Starbucks or Pampers are using pictures from Instagram. They have giant budgets. They could easily afford perfect photography. But what they know is that real photos, the 3 R's, real photos of real things taken by real people, gives a much more realistic experience for people, and people are more likely to like those photos online. So regardless of where you're using images, get in the habit of taking pictures, get in the habit of asking your customers to share photos as a way to grow your image library and grow your brand. So what I want to do next is cover some of the top visual social networks. And we're going to talk about Pinterest, and then we'll talk a little bit about Instagram. So Pinterest is basically your online pin board. So a few stats I'll share with you about Pinterest before we dive into what Pinterest is and how it really works. Pinterest is actually the 3rd most popular social network now. It has grown tremendously quickly. About 3 years ago, no one had heard of Pinterest and nobody cared about Pinterest. Now, Pinterest is one of the top social networks. Pinterest also is most heavily used by women. It's about 60% women right now. You might have heard stats that it was 96% women. When it started, it was very heavily female, but it does still continue to be a female site. And so what we're starting to see is businesses are using Pinterest as a way to generate traffic. So if we look at an example of Pinterest, this is a Pinterest board for Briarwood Forest. And so basically a Pinterest account is you set up an account, and it's free to create an account for Pinterest, and then you create boards. So this is a board called Flowers by Briarwood Forest. This is a board called For the Belly. This is a board called For the Season. This is a board called Lady Greensleeve. So these are all different boards. And within a board, you'll pin content. So you can see the top 5 pins from each board. So these 5 images here have been pinned onto this board. So Pinterest almost works the same way as a real-life pin board would, where you have a pin board and you would pin stuff that you like on it. Generally speaking, the way Pinterest works is you arrange your content into different categories. So for example, each of these boards is a category. And the way that you would think about using Pinterest, here's what I would recommend if you're looking to get started on Pinterest. I'll include some different examples. Is think about things that your customers are passionate about, things that they're interested in, and things that they might ask you about all the time. Those are things that make great boards for Pinterest. So, for example, we have Flowers by Briarwood Forest. So this is a great board for them to showcase the kinds of floral arrangements that they do. If you think about a website, if I went on your website, I'd have to click on a lot of pages to find all of your floral arrangements. On Pinterest, all of these can be organized into a board. Then they have one that's called Flowers We Love. That's a great board for like maybe inspiration. Let's look at a board that has, or a Pinterest account for a florist that's a little more targeted. This is called the Enchanted Forest. And you can see they haven't fully set up their Pinterest account yet. But as we look at their Pinterest board, I thought this was a great example to help you envision how you could actually use this, okay? So you can see here, Best of the Enchanted Forest. So they're showing their best stuff first. Wedding ceremony, aisle decorations. Wedding flowers, bright and something. Wedding flowers, rustic. Wedding flowers, and so on. So let's say a bride comes in and wants to understand what are the different types of floral arrangements that you can do. You actually could send them to your Pinterest account and have them look at some of the different Pinterest boards that you've created. So you could say, why don't you check out our Pinterest board on aisle decorations and see if there's anything in there that you really like. Why don't you check out our Pinterest boards on, the bright wedding flowers if you're looking for something bright. And here's the thing. If you're creating Pinterest boards, you might be starting out and saying, oh, yikes, I don't actually have a lot of images. Some of you might have tons of great pictures and you're ready to get going on this. Others may say, oh, no, I don't really have a lot of these pictures yet. You could set these up as inspiration boards. So, when you go to get a haircut, I don't know if they do this for men, but for women, when you go to get a haircut, oftentimes they'll give you a book of, like, celebrities and stuff, or a hair book, and they'll say, what kind of styles do you like? Is there something that you'd like me to mimic your hairstyle after? Most of the styles, actually all of the styles usually in these lookbooks are not cuts that was done by that particular stylist. These are professional haircuts. But it's giving the customer an idea of what they might want, and it's making it easier for the two people to communicate. So even if you don't have a lot of great images yourself, you could just pin other content into your boards and use it as an inspiration piece to help you communicate. These are some other examples. So you can see here wedding flowers, bouquets, etc. What I want to draw your attention to is the boards at the bottom. You'll see one, Destination Nashville. So they're showing a destination wedding. Again, another way to inspire. But beside that, you'll notice 2 boards with people's names on them. And you'll see just beside where it says Rachel Melly, just to the right of that, you'll see there's a little icon with like 3 little people on it. That's a group board. A group board is a Pinterest board that multiple people can collaborate on. So for example, if this florist created a group board, the florist may contribute to the board, but perhaps the bride is also contributing to the board. Perhaps also the mother of the bride is contributing to the board. perhaps the mother of the groom, who knows. But multiple people can all pin content onto this one board, which is a great way to create a collaborative experience for inspiration or to see what someone's thinking of. The other thing that's really neat that you could do with these collaborative boards is you could also make them private. So if maybe you're thinking, you know, wow, this sounds like something that my corporate clients would want, but I'm not sure I'd want everyone to know who they are. I don't know if I'd want this all to necessarily be open for the public. You can actually create private boards that only you and the other people contributing to can see. So as you think about how you might use Pinterest, you can start to see it's a really cool way to actually collaborate, to share information, and to maybe bring your business to life in a new and unique way that maybe you haven't thought about before, or that might be a little more difficult to do on your website. And what I would recommend if you're absolutely new to Pinterest, we don't have a ton of time together today to go through all the ins and outs of exactly how Pinterest works and how to get started. If you're new to Pinterest, what I would recommend is just start by going on Pinterest and search, look at what other florists are doing, look at what other businesses in your community are doing, just to get a feel for what Pinterest is and how it works. If you're passionate about an interest, use Pinterest to research stuff, just so you can kind of get a feel for it. And so, you know, you can see another example here where they're showing a variety of different things. What I think Pinterest is really great for is it's a great resource guide for people. So at Bootcamp Digital, we actually do social media training. So we spend all of our time educating people on social media. And people often ask me stuff like, hey, Krista, what are the best social media books you recommend that I should read? Well, I went and created a Pinterest board called Books I Recommend. So now when someone asks that, I'm like, oh, check out my Pinterest account, and you can find it there. For Bootcamp Digital, we have boards with other businesses that we recommend. So instead of people coming to us saying, hey, Krista, who should we use for this and this and this, we can say, oh, check out our Pinterest board. So you can use it in a lot of ways, not only to showcase your own work, but also to be a resource for some of your clients and to build deeper connections. Pinterest is especially popular for weddings. So if a lot of your business does come from brides and weddings, it definitely is one of the top places that brides go to plan their weddings. So definitely something that you might want to think about as you're considering how you might use it. So you can see here, I just went on Pinterest and did a quick search for florists, and I can already start to see some of the different floral arrangements that people are sharing. So what you can see on these screens, what I was showing you is a Pinterest account with pin boards. So these individual buckets are called boards on Pinterest. And then these are individual pins. So a pin is basically an image that's shared on Pinterest. And you can either link to an image that's sitting somewhere else on the internet, so I could pin flowers from your website, or I could upload a picture myself. And so these are individual pins that someone would be pinning onto their Pinterest account. And as I think you start to think about some of your clients and the people that you interact with, I think you'll start to see how Pinterest can be a really great way not only to showcase your business and what you do, but also to collaboratively work with your clients and to grow your brand and get exposure with new people. Because let's say I found a bouquet that I loved on your site. Let's say I'm planning an event and I found one of these floral arrangements and I pinned it to my wedding board, let's say. Well, all of the people that I'm friends with on Pinterest, now they're going to see the thing that I've pinned onto my board. And that can get exposure for your content with my friends as well. So one of the benefits of Pinterest is also that content that you pin can travel well throughout the internet. And so these are just examples so that you can see some of the actual pins that people are pinning on their board. So these would be pins of bouquets that are being pinned onto boards on Pinterest. Something else that you can do on Pinterest, and this is what I would recommend you do to get started, is you can actually see what people have already pinned from your website, or actually any website. You can look at your site, you can look at your competitor's site. you can see in the top of this screen, I'm at www.pinterest.com/source/robinflorist.com. So you can actually type in pinterest.com/source/ any domain name.com, and you can start to see content that's being pinned from a website. So these are bouquets that are being pinned onto Pinterest by other people. So if we look at the first one, Elizabeth Hall pinned this bouquet from Robin Florist onto her board called Spring Wedding. In this case, Elizabeth pinned the bridesmaid bouquet. Here, Leah Christine pinned this arrangement into her wedding brainstorming board. So you can also start to get an idea for how Pinterest links to your website and the kind of content people might want to share by looking at this source content here. So this shows you content from your website that other people are pinning onto Pinterest already. This is stuff that people are pinning from FTD.com. So we can see here, FTD Michigan State University Spartans Rose Bouquet. And so you can see this person has pinned it onto a few different boards. So you might think, well, look, we're just selling flowers here. I don't know if people want to talk about them on the internet. As you start looking at this source stuff, and as you start looking, especially just even searching on Pinterest for floral arrangements, flowers, and florists, what you'll find is actually people on Pinterest are talking about flowers and sharing flowers that they like a great deal. And one of the things that we actually know about Pinterest is people often do buy as a result of things they see on Pinterest. So people who visit your website from Pinterest, on average, are 10% more likely to buy and spend 10% more than traffic from other social networks. And it's because they're looking at stuff they want, right? If I was on here researching St. Patrick's Day bouquets, then the stuff that comes up would be stuff I'm really interested in, so it makes sense that I may choose to go ahead and purchase that. And a lot of people use Pinterest sort of as a search engine. So what I would encourage you to think about with Pinterest, the next step is, again, one, it starts by having good images on your website. So you can see here, I've pinned, I haven't, but I can see the content that people are pinning from FTD.com. And it starts by them having this content on their website. If this Michigan State bouquet was not on the FTD website, I wouldn't be able to pin it and share it and get my friends all excited with it, about it. So it starts by making sure your website is in good shape. But then, as it comes to Pinterest, start by researching. What is it that people seem to be pinning? Are they pinning from your website already? Are they pinning from your competitors' websites? And then think about your clients and how you can use Pinterest to create boards in a way that would be a resource for them. So I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about Instagram next. Instagram is a large and growing social network. The audience for Instagram is primarily under 35. So if you're dealing with corporate event planners who are more seasoned or something like that, you're probably not going to find a lot of them on Pinterest. However, or on Instagram rather. However, if you're looking at brides, for example, or event planners who are maybe in a more junior position, or whoever it is you're doing business with, Instagram is very, very popular in the under 35 crowd. So what is Instagram? Instagram allows you to easily take, edit, and share photos from your phone. So you need a smartphone. You need a phone that takes pictures to use Instagram. And what you can do is take a picture, edit it, and instantly share it. And you'll notice that a lot of the images on Instagram look kind of cool, right? Instagram has some neat editing features which give their photos kind of this cool look and feel. So there's two big opportunities when it comes to Instagram. First, it's a great place to create visual content, to create images. So like I can take pictures. Again, this is something, as you put something new together, if there's something particularly beautiful that comes in stock or rare or interesting, you can take a picture from your phone on Instagram and you can instantly share it to Facebook, Twitter, your website, or any other social network that you participate on. So Instagram is a cool way to take and share photos from a mobile application while you're on the go. But the other thing you can do is ask your customers to take photos on Instagram. So you can see in this top row, these are photos of Instagram that have been tagged with flowers. So these are photos of flowers that people have shared on Instagram. And you can see in the top section, see this one from Vicky Happy. Presumably, it looks like flowers that someone had sent her. So one of the things that you can also do is ask your customers to take photos and tag you in them so that you can see their photos and reshare them and put those on your website. This links back to what I talked about at the beginning with the Big Mac, right? I've gotten flowers sent to me that arrived and looked like complete crap. And fortunately, it was not FTD flowers. But I had flowers sent to me. They arrived and they were half dead. They were awful. And so now, when we think about ordering flowers, we're very choosy about who we choose to order them from. And we also specifically look for, can we see what other people's flowers arrive looking like? And so by asking your customers to take photos, or if you're doing a live event and you're there taking photos yourself, by sharing some of these photos that look realistic, it looks like they were taken on the go at the actual event, by sharing some of this content, you can increase the believability where people feel like, man, you know, these photos are great, don't get me wrong, but look, I'm not sure, this looks like a professional picture. If I order these flowers, what are they going to look like when they get to my house? And that's where these kind of photos can really help you to close more deals by showing a realistic view of what someone's experience is like if they choose to do business with you. And so that's where Instagram really can come into play, is by giving you and your customers the opportunity to showcase and share realistic expectations that actually build trust and make people more likely to choose you. So for example, if you were looking at the bridal category, for example, if you do a lot of flowers for weddings, as you're there setting up, you can take some pictures, post them on Instagram, and then also maybe collect them all in a Pinterest board. And when you have new brides come in, you can say, look, we do a wonderful job setting up. You can see real setups right here. And it's a great way to sort of build trust and showcase kind of what you do in an interesting way. One business that does a great job using Instagram, you can check them out if you're interested, is Coil Wholesale. I wanted to show Coil Wholesale to you because they're in the events and wedding industry. And so Coil Wholesale is a business that sells wholesale and direct-to-consumer event and wedding supplies. And they got on they got on Instagram, and combining those two names, they got on Instagram about probably a year to a year and a half ago. And what they actually do is they don't just upload pictures that they're taking, but they also upload pictures of new products in their catalog. And what they do when they share photos on Instagram is they'll ask people what they think, so they also use it as a two-way communication platform. So for example, they may upload a picture of a new product and ask people, and they'll say, like it or leave it. Do you want us to, should we add this to our catalog or not? And they get hundreds of likes of many of their pictures by interacting with the community, posting interesting content, and really just sort of sharing their business and what they're all about. And you can see here, 6,000, they follow 6,000 people, 20,000 people follow them on Instagram. So Instagram is another great place where you can actually get attention, build your brand, and build your community. I've posted pictures on Instagram about business topics that have gotten over 20 likes. When we as Bouquet Digital post stuff on Facebook, it rarely gets 20 likes. So what I like about both Instagram and Pinterest is they can be great ways to kind of showcase your business, share what you're doing in a way that's a little more authentic, and people do take note of it. So this is another florist. This is Waltham Florist. And again, look at their Instagram content. You know, some of it, Happy St. Patrick's Day, Hello December, but we also have, you know, real pictures of, I don't know what you call flower bracelets, but we can see here, you know, real pictures of flowers, what they look like when people get them, what it looks like in action. Are these pictures as perfect looking as the pictures that we see on their website? Probably not, but it's giving people a real idea of what their experience might look like, and that oftentimes can be much more valuable. Here are some of the other things. So some small stuff, they're doing some stuff that's kind of interesting. If I had a flower for every time I thought of you, I could walk through my garden forever. So, some inspiration stuff, some stuff that's a little more professional, and then some pictures that are just taken on the go. And a good mix of content works well on Instagram. Here's the last point I'll make about Instagram is that even if you don't necessarily think that people on Instagram are interested in looking at your pictures, first I would say you're probably wrong, but Instagram is a great app to take pictures that you then share on Facebook or post on your website or your blog or your Twitter account or all your other social networks. So I also think of Instagram as a great tool to create visually stunning content. The other thing is people on Instagram tend to be very engaged. So I mentioned Coil Wholesale gets hundreds of likes. I post some pretty boring business pictures, and you can see in this bottom picture here, work hard, blah, blah, blah. 23 people liked this picture. And the reason I posted these two pictures, the top picture and the bottom picture, I posted these two pictures almost around the same time at the same speaking engagement. The biggest difference is in the second picture, I got 23 likes. In the first picture, I got 1 like. In the second picture, I use hashtags. If your business target is primarily local, you can use neighborhood tags. For example, in Cincinnati, people use hashtag Cincinnati. There's a neighborhood tag for my neighborhood, which is "This is OTR." So look at what hashtags people are using. You could use wedding hashtags, event industry hashtags. But by tagging your content, people are much more likely to see it, and it's a really, really powerful way to connect. So I know we covered a lot of stuff today, but I wanted to give you a couple of ideas of kind of things that you can start doing to get a visual presence going for your business. So just to tie this all together, step 1, audit your website. Do you have images? Are they easy to find? Do they connect to social networks? Could you be adding more user-generated images? So maybe for each product, especially your most popular one, it's not just that stock photo, but you can augment that with user-generated pictures or pictures taken from a phone. Audit your existing social networks. Are you making good use of images? Are you incorporating these sort of more authentic images, Instagram-style images, to give them a more sort of realistic feel? And then next, consider image social networks. Pinterest and Instagram are two of my favorite social networks right now because they're insanely effective and they're not so cluttered like Facebook is. So it can still be a good source to connect with people. So with that, I think we have time for a couple of questions. And so I will pass it back over to the organizers to see what questions we've had come in during the call.
Great. Krista, thank you so much for sharing a lot of great information. And as Krista mentioned, we are now open for questions. So remember, if you have a question, simply type it in the question box on the upper right side of your screen. We do have a few questions, some great questions that came in during your presentation. Andrea wants to know, how do you give someone your Pinterest address?
So I'm going to go and can you guys all see my, hopefully you can see my computer screen now?
Yep, we can. Yep.
Okay, great. So when you set up your Pinterest account, you'll create a username, and your Pinterest address will just be pinterest.com/your username. So for my company, Bootcamp Digital, it's pinterest.com/bootcampdigital. For me, it's pinterest.com/Krista Neher. And so it's just pinterest.com/your username. If you're using Pinterest a lot, you can link to it on your website as well, or link to it through your Facebook page even.
Great. Andrea also had another question. She asked, how do you recommend posting individually to Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, or by using a host that will post simultaneously at one time? And do you do a time post?
Yeah, so basically, I'm just going to reiterate the question a little for those of you who are maybe more beginners to social networks. There are some sites that will allow you to create one message and automatically push it to a lot of social networks at once. Pinterest actually does not allow that yet. They don't have an open API, so you can't actually do that with Pinterest. There are some tools that let you do it to Instagram. You can do that to Facebook and Twitter. Here's my 2 cents, is that posting the literally exact same thing on multiple social networks at once creates a really bad user experience. So, for example, I mentioned on Instagram, hashtags are absolutely vital to your visibility. People on Facebook hate hashtags. So what I would suggest is, even if you're going to post the same content, so let's say I wanted to post about a St. Patrick's Day bouquet. I keep using that because St. Patrick's Day just passed, and I'm actually an Irish citizen. But that's another story at any rate. So if there's a St. Patrick's Day bouquet that I wanted to get people excited about, what I would probably do is, even if I'm going to post about the bouquet, so it's the same idea, I would customize the post a little for each social network. So I'd post it on Facebook without hashtags to make it longer. I would post it on Twitter as a short text post, maybe use a hashtag. And then if I post it on Instagram, I would use a lot of hashtags. If I post it on Pinterest, I want to leave a long description to maximize the findability and searchability. So because each tool has different optimization strategies, I never recommend posting literally the exact same thing, but I think you're fine to post the same type of content at the same time. Very few people are looking at you at every social network all at once. So you're fine to do that. You just want to make sure you customize it all.
Great. Greg wants to know exactly what is a hashtag.
Okay, good question. So actually, if you want to see we have a 3-minute video on our YouTube channel. I should put it as a featured video because we end up showing it to people a lot. We have a video on here called What is a Hashtag? It's a 3-minute video that kind of explains what a hashtag is. So if you come here, you can find the What is a Hashtag video. But here's what a hashtag basically is. So if we look at Twitter, I'm going to show you my Twitter account. If we look at what a hashtag is, so you can see here, you see in my post, don't forget that hashtag CZLNY launch party. A hashtag is basically a way to categorize what a post is generally about. So in this case, CZLNY stands for Click Z Live New York, which is a conference I'm speaking at in New York right now. So you can use a specific hashtag. So sometimes hashtags will be created around events. So for example, this is a specific hashtag where they say, hey, look, anyone talking about this event, use this hashtag so we can find all of your tweets. Because what using a hashtag does is it makes content discoverable. So I just clicked on the hashtag, and now I can see everything that people are posting about the event. So it's a way to categorize what a post is about. You'll also see general hashtags used. So let me scroll down. Here we go. Nice sunset over Philadelphia. Hashtag U.S. Airways. Hashtag travel. Hashtag airplane. So I'm also using general words to tag other things that are thematically related to my content. So the picture that I posted on Instagram here, isn't that pretty? The picture I posted here, it shows a plane. It's a sunset. It's about travel. I was on U.S. Airways. So I tagged these things to kind of to showcase the theme of what my content was about. Hashtags are heavily used on Instagram. They are most important on Instagram. They're also used very regularly on Twitter. They don't work well on Facebook, so I would not recommend them on Facebook, and you really don't need them on Pinterest, actually, because Pinterest is searchable based on the words used in your descriptions, whether or not they happen to have the hashtag symbol in front of them. So a hashtag is basically something that people use to categorize the theme of content that they post online, so the theme of the tweet. And some are specific that people tell people to use. Others might be general things that just generally explain what your post is about.
Great. Anna has 2 flower shop locations. She's wondering, should she create multiple accounts on each social media platform for each location, or focus on building one for the brand as a whole?
So presumably they both have the same name. I think you'd want to do one for the brand as a whole, because ultimately you would end up duplicating 90% of your content probably. So unless unless they're totally different, right? If I don't know why they would be, but if one of them was for whatever reason targeting a college and another was targeting events and they had very different target audiences, you may choose to do different things. But I would say 90+% of the time you can manage them both through one network. And I would just make sure you include both addresses on it. You would want on Facebook to have multiple places set up for those, but on the visual social networks especially, I definitely would not recommend doing more than one. I think it would just be a lot more work with no real payout for you. So I think you're fine to do one account as long as the both stores are called the same name, and that's how people identify with it. I would just do one for both.
All right. Lance wants to know, should you pin other flower shops' designs? Because they would link them back to their site, correct? So.
Yep. Yeah, good question. You know, there's some different points of view on this stuff. So there's some things in social media where I would say there's not just one answer. Here's the thing, right? I'd rather pin to someone else's stuff than have nothing at all to pin. So Home Depot is a great example. Home Depot's been on Pinterest since the beginning, and they've done a fabulous job. When they got started, I would say 70% of their pins were actually going to marthastewart.com. Because if you look at the kind of stuff Home Depot is pinning, this is not typical Home Depot content, right? At the risk of stereotyping a little bit, most Home Depot content, like if you get a flyer in the mail, it's like man stuff. It's like power tools and wood and, you know, real like intense home improvement stuff. Because Pinterest is primarily female, they've adapted their content strategy so it's much more home and garden-y. So initially, most of what they were pinning was from marthastewart.com. And then as they evolved their own content, so as they were pinning Martha Stewart, at the same time they started creating their own more appropriate content. Now, 90% of the stuff they pin is coming from HomeDepot.com. So if you don't have any content, I think inspiration boards are great, even if they happen to go to a competing florist. Here would be my 2 cents, though, if I were going to do it. I would assume, and this is a bit of an assumption, but I would assume that for most of your business, you're dealing with people in your geography, right? So if I'm a bride, for example, and I live in Cincinnati, you know, if you were pinning from other Cincinnati florists, that might not be the best approach because I could probably pick them instead. If you're pinning from, like, I don't know if there's such a thing as famous floral designers, or if you're pinning people from other florists that aren't really competitive, maybe they're in California, that's how I would go about it. So I would try to avoid pinning from anyone who could be considered a direct competitor, which to me would probably mean someone within your geography. In most instances, and I'm sure it's not the case all the time, but I do think if you don't have the content yourself, it's such a powerful tool that as a gap, I would definitely pin other content, even if it is from other florists. I would just try and avoid doing other local ones so that it's less competitive.
All right. Beverly wants to know, can you post too much to your business Facebook and Instagram pages, and what's a good amount per day to keep traffic on your business's site?
Yeah, so, you know, my rule of thumb is, you know, post when you have something relevant or interesting. If you have a schedule but you don't have anything interesting, don't just post for the sake of it. There are Facebook pages that are successful posting 3 or 4 times a day. There are others that post once a day. So any rule of thumb is just a rule of thumb, right? It's not the only way to be successful, and I wouldn't use it as a hard and fast rule. I would use it as this is what most people who are successful do. So when it comes to Facebook, you know, when it comes to all social networks, spacing it out is the key, right? So, like, if I just go to my home page on Pinterest, this is like my actual Pinterest. I don't know what my friends might be pinning, hopefully. Okay, good. Nothing too offensive. But here's the thing. Most social networks, the way your news feed works is if I follow you on Instagram, if I follow you on Pinterest, if I follow you on Facebook, Facebook works a little differently, but for the most part, if I follow you, when you pin something or post something, I'm going to see it in my news feed, right? if you go through these phases where you do 20 things at once, you're going to kind of like hijack, oops, I didn't mean to click on that. You're going to kind of hijack my news feed, and I'm going to find it annoying. So, like, I just came to my Pinterest account, and this like ladies, I don't know who this is, but has like 5 things in a row, right, which I don't really care about any of these. So I might unfollow her. So if you do things where you're kind of like posting a ton of stuff at once, you might find that people unfollow you because you're kind of like overwhelming them and hijacking your feed. So here's a great example, right? This Annie Silver person, look at that. That's like really annoying because I'm not super interested in most of these things. And now look at how much of my news feed. And then we have this other anything with does person. So, like, you'll see what's happening is they're kind of annoying me, and I would probably unfollow them. So the key to success isn't so much how often you post, it's how you space it out. So if this person wanted to post 5 things a day, but she posted 1 in the morning, 1 midday, if they were spaced out 2 hours apart, it would just get mixed in with everything else. So what you want to do is avoid scheduling too much stuff all at once. But a few rules of thumb. Facebook, generally once a day. Instagram, I think 1 to 3 times a day is plenty. Twitter, generally 1 to 10 times a day is fine. And I would say Pinterest, Pinterest content isn't timestamped, so you can't really tell when things have been pinned. So there's less pressure for recency on Pinterest. But I would say Pinterest, if you're posting a couple times a week even, that would be fine. But you could post as many as multiple times a day. The key with all of these is spacing it out so you don't bombard someone's news feed and they feel like you're being a little annoying.
All right. Jack wants to know if there's a difference between a business Pinterest page and a personal Pinterest page.
Yeah, there's one small difference. So Pinterest hasn't really enforced requiring pages to do something. I wasn't trying to go to Pinterest. Pinterest hasn't really enforced requiring businesses to do something different. So on Facebook, for example, a human has a profile and a business has a page. On Pinterest and Instagram, both of those just have accounts. So a person has an account and a business has an account. The primary difference is that businesses can verify their account. To find this, just literally Google Pinterest verification procedure. You'll find out how to do it. You basically need to drop a little piece of code onto your website so Pinterest knows that you're the person related. So if you verify your site, you get this little verification check mark. And the other thing that you'll get access to is Pinterest Analytics. And Pinterest Analytics will allow you to see content being pinned from your site, and you'll also get insights into how your Pinterest account is doing. So the accounts function the same way, so it's not like Facebook where pages can do this and people can do that. All accounts are equal, except if you verify your account, then you actually get access to analytics. So I definitely would recommend that. And at some point, we might see additional differences, but right now, that's the only thing.
All right. Michael wants to know, can you delete any of the boards or posts after posting them?
Yeah, easily. So, like, I'm logged in as myself. Let me go into my boards, and I'll show you real quick. I think these are really funny. They're like little knife magnets. I can go into Edit Board, and I can delete the board from there, and I can delete any individual pins as well, just the same thing by clicking on them, and I can edit and delete a pin as well. So, yeah, super easy to do.
All right. Devin wants to know, are there any applications that can help schedule posts in advance to connect with people when they're most likely to be viewing?
Not for Pinterest. So Pinterest does not have an open API at the moment, so I'm not aware of anything that will let you do it. I use a tool called Hootsuite.com. It's free to create an account in Hootsuite, and it allows you to, I can click here, I can make a post for Twitter, and I can schedule it out. There's an add-on for Instagram, so you can actually add on Instagram. I've actually never used that, so I can't speak to how well that actually works. but definitely something to think about. So Hootsuite is what's most commonly used. Primarily it's used for Twitter. Facebook has scheduling built in, so when you go to do a post on a Facebook company page, it'll actually, at the bottom, you'll see a little scheduling icon, and you can schedule them out on Facebook directly in the Facebook tool.
All right, and Ben wants to know, how do you exactly create a hashtag?
Yeah, so you don't really like create a hashtag. Hashtags basically exist because people choose to use them. So basically, some hashtags happen just like organically, right? So for example, hashtag Cincinnati, hashtag social media, hashtag airplane, hashtag healthy, hashtag yum. As you look at some of the hashtags, some of it is people just tagging words that symbolize overall what it's about. If you wanted to encourage people to tag photos so you would know, you would first you'd start by searching and making sure it's not used. So for Bootcamp Digital, when we do live training events, we ask people to use hashtag BCD Live. So the first thing I would do is search for BCD Live, and I'd want to look and make sure that nobody is using the hashtag already. So as long as no one is using it, then I'm good to go. You don't have to claim it or register it or anything weird like that. All you have to do is choose it and tell people about it. So a hashtag like Cincinnati, or in my neighborhood, Over the Rhine, people use This Is OTR. Some just happen organically, and as you follow people, you'll start to see what they are using, and you might just start using the same thing. But if you want people to specifically use something, you just pick something simple, check that no one else is using it, and then start broadcasting and sharing it. So tell people to use it, and that's what starts to make it meaningful. So like we just did a 2-day boot camp recently, so the people from the 2-day boot camp are using it so they can see what each other is saying. So you have to just basically tell people about it, and that's how people will start using it.
All right, and we've got a last question here from Rob. Is there a method or website for managing posts in each of the social networks?
I mean, a lot of people use Hootsuite to manage posts, because you can see on Hootsuite, I have my Twitter account, Bootcamp Digital's Twitter account. I have my Facebook page, my Google Plus page, and my LinkedIn page. So many of them can be managed directly through Hootsuite. There's also a tool called Sprout Social that connects multiple Twitter accounts or multiple social accounts. You have to pay for this. I think it's like maybe 25 or 50 bucks a month. Yeah, it's 60 bucks a month. Here's what I would say. The #1 social media management application is probably attached to you 80% of the time, and that's your phone. So I manage actually almost all my social networks from a day-to-day management standpoint. I manage most of them through my phone, and then I go on to the social networks when I want to post or share something. So Hootsuite is definitely the most popular. I would say 90% of businesses get what they need from Hootsuite. Sprout Social is one level up, so if you're already very active on social media and you want to take it to the next level, you may want to pay for that. And also make sure you harness the power of your phone. So it's actually the best way to make sure you're seeing stuff when you want to see it, you respond quickly, and you can post stuff on the go as it's happening right through your phone.
All right, great. We are definitely out of time, but we had a lot of really great questions. Krista, would you put up your final slide with your contact information so people can connect with you if they'd like?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely you can. I'm an open networker. Feel free to connect with me on all social networks. I participate in virtually all of them. And I'm at Krista Neher on every single social network. My email and phone number are here as well, so if you'd like to learn more about social media, don't hesitate to reach out.
All right, fantastic. I just want to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. If you missed a portion of this webinar or you would like to view it again, a replay will be available at FTD University online later this week. The webinar materials are available at ftdi.com. Simply click on the FTD University logo on the bottom of the home page and then click through to the webinar series page. We will be sending you a very brief survey to gather your feedback on today's webinar, so please complete this webinar to the survey to help us improve future webinars and other education programs for you. Our next FTD webinar is scheduled for Tuesday, June 10th. FTD education consultant Ann Jordan will discuss how to create independent employees by having a well-written employee handbook. Registration is already available at ftdi.com, so be sure to register as soon as possible to reserve your spot. Again, thank you, Krista, for sharing lots of great information on creating images and videos as part of our social media strategy. And as mentioned at the start of this webinar, we will randomly select one person who watched this live webinar in its entirety to receive a free copy of Krista's new book, Visual Social Marketing for Dummies. This concludes FTD's webinar, Results-Driven Visual Social Media Marketing. Thank you.